Hi everyone, welcome to your Introduction to Crochet tutorial set. So this will be a series of crochet videos that will teach you all of the stitches, all of the knowledge, all of the techniques that you will need if you are brand new to crochet. If you crocheted earlier on in life and forgot all about it, this will be a great refresher. Whether or not you have any previous knowledge, this set of tutorials is going to help you build up your technique and your knowledge to the point where we will make this beautiful granny square right here. I wanted to pick a granny square or a finished project that you could use to make multiple other projects. So once you learn to make this granny square, you could make this into a scarf, make a bunch of these squares, sew them all together, make a scarf, make a blanket. You can make a ton of stuff. There's tons and tons and tons of options. If you Google online for granny square projects, I've seen people make shirts out of them, tote bags out of them. You can make a ton of stuff just by learning how to make this square. So that will be the point of this set of tutorials. We are going to start at the very, very beginning, and I mean very beginning. I mean how to pick a crochet hook, how to pick yarn. That's the basics. That's where you need to start. You need a hook, you need a yarn, and we will learn how to pick the right yarn for your hook and vice versa. And then we will start in with all of the techniques that you're gonna need to make this granny square. So that's going to include setting up your foundation chains, how to do single crochet, half double crochet, and triple crochet, as well as crochet in the round. Now, if that sounded scary, don't worry. Please don't be intimidated. Anyone can learn to crochet. Anyone can do any of these techniques. My number one tip that I tell everyone who is new, practice, practice, practice. And then practice some more. And that's what's gonna get you that, I like to call it muscle memory, is that your fingers will learn how to manipulate the hook and the yarn, and it will become easier and easier the more you just, practice. So we're gonna start at the very beginning. If you are brand new, walk through the tutorials one at a time. Each tutorial kind of builds on the other ones. And maybe if you are just refreshing, you may want to start at the beginning, just watch some refresher videos, and then we will all get to the point where we make this beautiful granny square. You may also want to get some stitch markers. This is more for the finished product and not really for the tutorials. So for the tutorials, we're going to get some yarn, we're going to get a hook. As we make the granny square, you may want a stitch marker. More about that in a previous or in one of the tutorials. Even if you just have one of these safety pins that kind of looks like a light bulb, that would be great. And that's all you need to get started. And I promise you guys, anyone can do this. Anyone. You just have to practice. Give yourself some space and give yourself the permission for things not to be perfect the first time around. The more you do this, the better and better the outcome will look. So definitely practice. Let me know what you think of this set of tutorials and work your way through. You can tag me. I'm Liz at Different View Designs. I would love to see your finished products. I'd love to see what colors you pick and what you end up making out of these granny squares. And let me know what you think about the tutorial set. So first step is to get supplies. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you want to look for if you're walking into a yarn store or shopping online, and what combination of yarn and needles or hooks you want to pick up. So I've got a couple different yarns here to show you the difference. You can see these two yarns. The gray one is super skinny and the green one is a little bit fatter. So with these two yarns, depending on which one you want to pick, you're going to be using a different crochet hook or a different set of knitting needles depending on which craft you decide to use. So if you're new to buying any of this stuff, the first thing you want to do is look at the yarn sleeve. So most of the yarns that you're going to buy in the big box stores like Michael's, or AC Moore or Joanne Fabrics are going to have these nice sleeves on there. If you go into a specialty yarn store, you'll still be able to find this information on the sleeve. It's just a little bit more specific to the yarn manufacturer. But what you want to look for is there's a bunch of symbols here that tell you all about the fabric. There's some wash and care instructions on here generally. And what you really want to pay attention to are these blocks. So there's, I don't know if you can see that, there is a little yarn skein shown on there. It's got a number on there, and this one says medium. So that gives you some kind of context as to what size yarn this was. Now I called this super skinny at the beginning, but this is actually a medium yarn. So there's yarns that come a lot skinnier than that one. And then these two blocks here will tell you the appropriate sized crochet hook if you're crocheting, and an appropriate size knitting needle if you're knitting. Now these are just guidelines. It'll depend on what you're making and how tight you generally keep your tension. We'll get to that in a couple more videos down the line. If you are brand new, what I suggest is to go with nothing smaller than a size 4. So these go all the way down to 1 or 0, I can't remember, and all the way up to 6 or 7. So this gray one is a 4. If we take a look at this green one, it's a little bit smaller, but you can see here that it's a 6. It's called a super bulky. And it'll tell you the appropriate knitting needles for that one. So if you're new, I say start with maybe a 4 or a 5. If you go too small, then it gets a little bit fiddly to work with. And if you get too big, it's also a little bulky and hard to manage if you're brand new. So take a look at these labels. This one, this gray one, is telling us that we need to use a size, you can see it, 5.5 millimeter or I9 crochet hook. And if you're knitting, it's a 5 millimeter or a US size 8 crochet hook. I'll provide you guys with some information about how to interpret all of that, because there's different sizes for all of these depending on whether you're in the US or UK. And yeah, so I actually like to go a little bit larger than what the package specifies. So if this says a 5 millimeter hook or a size I9, I actually like to pick up, here's my crochet hook. This one's a 6.5 millimeter and a K. It'll do just fine for this yarn. If you're brand new, I would suggest not trying to knit or crochet too tightly, which means that if you pick a yarn, you can pick a crochet hook or a knitting needle that's slightly larger than that. What that's going to do is that's really going to enable you to see the stitches a little bit better. And if you're new, it's really good to be able to see what you're doing until you build up the muscle memory to just be able to do it without thinking. So yeah, this is a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. The knitting needle that I would choose for this one, where is it printed? Oh, there it is. Let's see if we can see that. This is a US 10.5 knitting needle. Again, this is 6.5 millimeters. This is a circular knitting needle. For those of you that don't know the difference, this is circular, so you can knit things in a circle. I know, tricky, right? There's also straight knitting needles. Either one, if you're a beginner, is perfectly fine. I do almost all of my work on the circular knitting needles. I prefer them a little easier. I feel like when you're not working on your work, you can just slide it into the loop here and stuff doesn't fall off as easy. But really, it's totally up to you guys what you would prefer. If you're brand new, to be quite honest, just go into the store or order online and just see what's the cheapest. Sometimes that's the easiest way to start until you build up some preferences. You'll also notice that there's different materials. So this is a wood or a bamboo knitting needle. This is a metal crochet hook. Again, this is all personal preference that you guys will build up as you build into the craft. So yeah, so that would be my recommendation. I really like these sizes. If you're looking at the 6.5 millimeter or maybe a little larger. You don't want to go too much larger than that. And I can show you here, if we look at this green yarn, since it is a little fatter, it's telling us to go with a knitting needle that's a size 13. Ooh, that's tiny. Or a crochet hook that's an N. And what I've used with this specific yarn, this is in size N or 15 crochet hook. This is a 10 millimeter here. You can see that. And then the knitting needle that I would use with this is a US size 15. You may have to trust me because I'm not sure that's going to show up on the video. Or a 10 millimeter knitting needle. Again, circulars is what I prefer. Just my personal preference. The knitting needles can get super big, and I guess the crochet hooks too. So this is a super big knitting needle. This is actually a size 19, 15 millimeter. These, once you get up to this size, makes projects really quick. So you can knit or crochet really fast. I find them a little bit bulky if you're just starting out. So you may want to choose something kind of in the middle ground. So that's why I say anything from the 6.5 millimeter and up, maybe up as high as this one, which is the 10 millimeter, are probably good for beginners. Again, too small and it gets really, really fiddly to work with. Too big and it gets a little bulky and hard to manage. So hopefully that helped you guys. If you have any questions, just reach out, let me know. Otherwise, join me for the next set of videos where I'll be talking about how to cast on if you're knitting, or how to create your foundation chain stitch if you're trying to learn how to crochet. Thanks, guys.